Today I'm sitting down with a custom home builder to talk about how the building process works and how buyers can finance their dream home from the ground up. My name is Amy Harvell, and I am in the top 1% of loan officers in the country, top 5 VA loan officers in the US, and I work for the #1 retail lender in the United States. Sitting across from me here is a pillar in the community, David Griggs, owner of Griggs Construction and Roofing. David, what inspired you to start your business?
So for me, it was a good transition from a previous company that we started back in 2013. What I was looking at is over the course of time, when me and Kim got married, I was watching a lot of custom home builders along with spec home builders, that were building houses and doing, just quality work and getting to see the customers at the end, like the joy that it brought them. So for me, having that side of it that I had previously dealt with another company that I owned, I knew it was something that I wanted to be able to do and to continue. So we launched Griggs Construction Roofing back a couple years ago, and the sky's the limit now.
Okay, awesome. What was the company in 2013 that you owned?
So it was Extreme Signs and Apparel.
Okay.
So how that kind of tied together is we did structural exterior building signs. So we did everything from foundation modifications up to, welding and basically putting up all the signs that you see on the side of the road.
What sets your homes apart from other builders?
So the biggest thing that we try to do, there's multiple, great builders around here. What we do is we build and we roof with integrity. Like that's one of our #1 core values. What sets us apart is just truly taking the time with the customer and making sure that they understand every aspect of the home. A lot of times you can just frame a house and tell them, hey, don't go in there until basically a sheetrock's on. We try to do it a little bit different. I actually set up hard points to where we walk through with the customer and try to explain every aspect, because no build is the same.
Right.
So a lot of times whenever they're looking at it, it's like, hey, why is this like this? Or what's going on with this? Or why are the water lines in the attic? I thought they went through the slab. So they don't quite understand it. So what we try to do is take that little bit of customer contact time to really explain the whole process. That way they can kind of just feel better about it, because at the end of the day, it's the largest investment they've ever made.
Right. It is a very cumbersome process,
For sure.
and there's a lot of hand-holding that's needed for sure. What are the first steps that somebody should take when thinking about building?
So my phone call starts out every time with a customer. Do you have financing in place, and do you already have property? Once we make it past that, the plan process to make sure that we've got a good set of house plans. At the end of the day, we can design the plans and we can build the biggest house that you could ever dream of. But if it doesn't fit in the budget and we don't know what that budget is, it just messes everything up in the beginning. So the #1 step is the financing. #2 step is making sure that we've already got land acquired or be on the lookout for the land.
How involved are homeowners in selecting finishes and design elements?
So it depends on the style of house that we're building. So if we're doing what we refer to as a spec home with light modifications, then typically we will have them come in, they pick out a package that we have with previous builds. We typically walk them through previous builds that we've done. And their price point is based around those finishes, but we'll allow them to modify certain things, such as wall colors, granite colors, cabinet colors. And then our next step is a fully customized home to where they pick everything. And we sit down. One thing that we try to make sure we do on every single house is we actually do a spec sheet. So we'll take the floor plan, we number every single room all the way, including the closets. And then we turn around, we build a spec page on that, and it literally says every item in that room. Door hinge color, door knob colors, what color are the doors, what color are the ceilings, what is the knockdown texture, or what is going to be popcorn, or what is going to be orange peel. So we label out everything, and what it does is not only does it give the customer a little bit at ease, to where they're not stressed about it because they kind of know what's going on, but it also gives us a map to follow the entire time, because the challenge that we're experiencing right now is we're super blessed in the aspect that we have multiple homes going. So, I have a customer that'll contact me and be like, hey, I need to pick the mortar for my brick on, whatever house. And I'm sitting here, trying to balance 7 or 8 houses at one time. So we reference those spec pages a lot to make sure it helps.
And do they have to stay in a certain price range, like for light fixtures, for instance?
Absolutely. So we set budgets, for every category, and we typically can tell with the initial conversations that we've had with the customers, like, what their style is. Some customers come in and they're like, hey, we want, just the nicest but cheapest things we can find. And then we've got other customers, that are higher end customers that want higher price points. So we preset those budgets, but then we also, I call it a splurge account, but at the end, we also add in just a little bit of splurge, a contingency fund, if you will, just in case that we go over in some aspects. But we try to be very clear to make sure that the customers understand, like, there's certain things in a house build, like the style of foundations we do and stuff like that. And I try to gear them towards, hey, let's spend money there. Like it's the foundation, it's the beginning. Like that's where we need to put money at. And then we turn around and maybe go a little bit lighter on our light fixtures and things like that with the potential to upgrade them down the road.
What is something that buyers are often surprised about during the building process?
Probably what surprises them the most is the order of operations. So obviously, we get the foundation taken care of, we frame the house, and then at that point we're doing all of our mechanicals. So we're dropping in air conditioning companies, all of our plumbing companies, our electrical companies, and sometimes the way that all of that is orientating, together doesn't make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes very good sense for us. So that's one big surprise. Another big surprise that a lot of people kind of question us on, or we have to explain, is before the flooring goes down, we're putting baseboards down, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. You'd think you'd put the baseboards down after the floor was already there, but we do that certain ways so that we can paint it appropriately and things like that. So it flows for us. We've got really strict and really good processes. But that's another thing that we try to do, is really step back with the customer and explain, like, hey, just so you know, this is coming, to have them ready for it.
Yeah, I think the timeline for sure, like that's definitely what I see as the biggest surprise on my end, because there are like third parties involved. Like you've got the county, you've got to pull permits, and you've got all of your trades.
So much
like
of it.
you can't control every variable in it. So definitely like setting the expectations with them clearly up front is super important.
Trying to be transparent. Another big one that we do is I have the sit down on day one with every customer, and they get these things in the mail that are called NTOs. And basically it's where we've hired a subcontractor to come in and put an element of the house together. Well, they send an NTO basically saying, hey, if Griggs Construction doesn't pay us, we're going to lien your house. Well, instantly they think all that is that it's a bill that I haven't paid. So day one, we're like, hey, you're going to get about 15 of these NTOs. Understand, we pay our bills and take care of it. So that's always a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And we laugh about it all the time, because the next week they'll be calling me, hey, I got my first NTO. I'm so glad you told me about that, because you were right. So,
Absolutely.
but that is one for sure.
What should buyers know about budgeting for a custom home?
The best thing to know about it is to get a contractor involved early. So before you go to a draftsman, or before you purchase a plan online, is to get a contractor involved early on, because there's so many variables in the building process that will elevate the price. So it can be exterior finishes, it can be interior finishes. Something as simple on the outside of your house of wanting a brick skirt running around the outside almost costs as much money as bricking the entire exterior of the house.
Wow.
Because at the end of the day, the subs, when they show up on a job site, they have to make money just like the rest of us. So they charge, like I said, just about as much for that brick skirt all the way up. So again, getting that contractor involved early is important, because we make sure that that brick skirt is at a certain height. That way the wood that we can use up top, or like the hardy that we use up top, we can use 8-foot boards instead of 10-foot boards and have to have a lot of waste. So that's one of the keys, is get a contractor, no matter who you use, get a contractor involved early on in the stage. That way he can guide you through the process. And even if it's not early involved in it, at least get them involved before you stamp the plans.
Yeah. What makes a great builder-lender partnership?
I think organization more than anything. For me, one of the highlights that I have had actually working with you guys across country is just the fact that I can introduce a customer and then I can kind of step away. So I'm there for the questions, but that's number one. Number two, for the builder side of it, is I'm sure if you talk to any of us, it's the draw process. Like, how do we, when we get to a stage, how can we get our money, and how can we get it pretty quick? What's cool about y'all is you've got an app. We literally, within 2 clicks, in the morning I'll have coffee, and literally I can request a draw, and the next day typically I have an inspection done and money already moving. So those are the big things. When customers call me and they're using an online corporation or something like that, like I kind of cringe a little bit, only because of the organization side. I need less phone calls and more action, and that typically is what we see out of a couple of the local companies.
Glad you've had a great experience with that so far. Why is it important to have financing lined up early in the process?
So right out of the gate is the budget. We have to make sure that we're working within a parameter. There's no point in designing a $750,000 house if our budget's $350. So we have to start there. So something that really surprised me is if a customer comes to us and they are looking to do a VA loan the fact that they can get the process started with 0% down.
Yeah, that's actually a phone call that we get quite a bit when somebody's wanting to build a home. They're like, how much do I need to put down for VA? And they don't realize that they can actually finance the land and the build together in one loan with no money down. So I agree on that. I also think, like, in a typical construction process, you got to make the interest only payments. The borrower has to make the interest only payments. But on the VA loan, the veteran cannot make the interest only payments. So that has to be factored into the total loan amount.
Absolutely.
And that's something that people don't realize, and that can impact the build price and the value. So all of those things come into play and definitely need to be, communicated early on.
Yep.
David, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. You've always been a great partner to work with, a great home builder. Thank you for chatting with us on how that process looks and what home buyers can expect.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.